All right, this is easily the most fun build I have played yet in Path of Exile 2 and is my new favorite build for sure. It screen clears, has amazing boss damage, is decently tanky, and is very fast at clearing maps as well. This is a very popular build based around the combination of Herald of Ice as well as this unique ring. I think I've seen ones from like Zizarin notably, and my good friend Pox is the one who actually inspired this build. He rated the channel, said check out what this combination can actually do. So I want to do a link down below to my friend Pox because I would not be trying this combination without him, and credit where credit's due in terms of being the person to inform me of how this actually works. With that being said, there are some differences in terms of what I've decided to go with my build, but there are a variety of other content creators out there as well that have options and variety of this. So I'd encourage you to go out and look at Ice Monks with everyone and see which version you actually like as well. On top of that, I have added a planner into down below in case you want to skip the crypt and go to the planner. You can see my gear, my passives, the gym cutting order, and all of that. I use the Max Row planner for this just because I saw in the previous videos many people have asked for that planner. So I have done that for you today, and I'll see if I can add a planner for some of the previous versions of like warrior builds and sorcerer builds, etc. that are out there. With that being said, I'm not a professional build guide maker or anything, but I get asked every day about what build I'm playing, so I'm making this video for those people. I will explain to you the passive tree and how it works. I will explain to you the skill gems here, and I'll explain to you my gear and the interactions of that. Starforge PC is also the sponsor of today's video, but I will be putting that ad promotion at the very end of the video. So if you wish to support my sponsor, you can check out that ad as well, or the link down below for a Starforge PC. So let's talk about the passive tree. Now, the passive tree, this is an Invoker monk because we are going to get both the chilled ground that we need for the ring combination we'll talk about in just a moment. We're going to be getting defenses from Protect Me from Harm, which gives us physical defense, even though we will have 0 armor because our physical defense is based upon evasion rating. We will be getting a large amount of spirit through Lead Me Through Grace, which is going to give us spirit for both evasion as well as energy shield on the chest plate. So I'm using a hybrid in order to get a lot of spirit. This is important because we're going to be running a lot of spirit gems on this build as well. Then later on in our 4th Ascendancy, we're going to be taking critical hits, ignore non-negative enemy monster elemental resistances. So because I'm running a lot of crit in this build, I think I have 70% at the moment, a lot of our attacks are just going to straight up penetrate all of the elemental resistances. For that reason, we don't have to take a lot of penetration on the board here because we're going to be getting that for free. Now, when you start this build in the beginning, I will say that you can also take I Am the Thunder. First, you're going to take I Am the Blizzard. Then you can take I Am the Thunder. Then when you do your 3rd Ascendancy, you can drop I Am the Thunder and go all the way up here from Protect Me from Harm. And then your 4th one can add the critical hits under my enemies. This is the reason you do this last is because your critical hit chance is going to be fairly low until you have enough passive points and high enough level and gear, etc., invested into critical hit for this to actually matter. In the beginning on the passive tree, you're pretty much going to go just straight up here and then swap these 2 nodes over for critical damage later when you have high crit chance. I grabbed the extra damage as lightning here because we are doing lightning damage and I wanted to do some shock. We'll talk about why in just a moment here. You're going to grab these durability nodes, come over here, and you're going to want the extra damage as code. We're primarily doing code damage and you're going to want that increased freeze build up. From there, I went straight down the middle. I grabbed all of these nodes as this is going to give us some damage and some attack speed. And then you're going to come up here and take resonance. The reason is you get power charges instead of frenzy charges. The reason that we need power charges is because of the charged staff skill. This consumes power charges to have us gain attack lightning damage on our staff, giving us a significant increase in terms of damage. Now, the bonus gems that I went on this is attacks gain 35% of damage as lightning damage for 3 seconds on killing a shocked enemy. This is part of the reason I want them to be shocked. If we look here, supported skills have 100% more chance to shock, and then skills penetrate lightning resistance, which you don't actually need this because, again, we're running the crit. This is a leftover gem that I had in from earlier before I had that. Now, because this consumes power charges, what we actually end up doing is we use a combat frenzy. This is something chat pointed out to me. They said, well, you can use combat frenzy and resonance. And so what this actually does is you gain a frenzy charge when you freeze, electrocute, or pin an enemy. Now, we have freeze and we do have pin, and we'll talk about pin in a moment. this will generate a frenzy charge, and I use Profusion to have a 50% chance to gain like an additional charge. So when we're freezing, which is happening quite often with this build because our primary ability is Ice Strike, we'll talk about that in just a second, we'll be gaining these charges. And then because they're frenzy charges, Resonance makes it where instead of frenzy charges, we're gaining power charges, and once again, power charges are being consumed by Charged Staff. That's why I go up here and grab this pretty much immediately after acquiring Charged Staff. This also sets us up for more critical damage and chance bonuses here for later on when we swap over to crit. After that, I pretty much rushed right down here and grabbed all these quarterstaff points here. These are all quite good. You get critical strike chance. You get consuming power charges, count as consuming the additional. So that paired with the 50% extra here on Profusion makes it where if I freeze once, I can get 2 charges, then 2 charges count as an additional, which makes it 3 charges. So off of 1 freeze, I can basically have 3 full charges for Charged Staff. The rest of these nodes are just actually quite good because it's like freeze buildup, it's attack speed, it's critical strike. So it's just a bunch of things you're going to end up needing. After that, I went down here, and you could probably grab your evasion, dexterity, and attack speed from dexterity nodes next. And then once you start adding in the extra heralds, you can grab your herald damage. We'll talk about the other heralds in a bit. And then there's a whole bunch more critical damage nodes. And by right about the point I start filling out this, you can start filling out your critical damage nodes there. You can get all these critical damage nodes here. Then you can grab the ones here in the corner for more crit. You can come up here and grab Echoing Frost, which will give you elemental damage if you chill recently. And we're going to be leaving chill ground basically all of the time. So we're chilling all of the time. So you get more elemental damage from that. You can also grab the 30% more elemental if you've shocked recently. This would be my next 2 points. I grabbed more crit here, and I grabbed Melding later on in the game for more energy shield. Once I had a chest piece that had a decent amount of energy shield, I grabbed Melding. These are probably worthy to grab earlier. I didn't grab it until later on, but Spectral Ward is quite good as you're going to be getting energy shield for evasion rating. And once again, we're going to be having evasion rating on our armor. Then I grabbed this over here. It does reduce our critical damage bonus, but gives us a large chunk of critical hit chance in order for more crit. This here is Heavy Frost, which increases free buildup, but also ignores non-negative elemental resistances. So you might be thinking, well, if you have your crit, why do you actually need this one? If I had 100% crit, I probably wouldn't need it, but I have 70%. So if I'm freezing like a boss, but not critting all of the time, this will give me some damage bonus for that. And then I have Thin Ice, which increases damage against frozen enemies once again. So this is a very easy 3-point combo, which is giving us a good amount of damage, particularly against bosses. Okay, so that's sort of the full tree. I don't have a lot of focuses on defenses. I'm sure you could probably focus more on defenses. If I had to say a weak point of my tree here, I would say it's that I focus primarily in significant damage. Okay, now I'm going to go through all of the abilities. Quarter Strike, Straff, I literally don't use this at all. I'm not even really sure what I have left over in here in terms of gems, so don't worry about these. I actually don't even have it bound. There's only 4 moves I actually use in this build. I use Flicker Strike, and this is when I'm like clearing a breach or something, and there happens to be a lot of mobs that I need to get to quickly, or I can use it to jump up or down a cliff if I'm kind of getting annoyed. So I use this primarily for movement and to speed up the build. When you have a lot of damage, you can use this to very quickly warp around, just like clean the entire screen. I use this with Concentrated Effect for more damage. I use it with Perpetual Charge to not remove charges. And then I have more melee physical on Heavy Swing that removes some attack speed, but you have so much attack speed on this 285 that 10%, you're not really going to notice. So that's what I'm running currently with this. I would like to make Flicker Strike work better. I wish I had Gem Cutters currently to add the additional chance to not remove charges, and I think there's some more potential with Flicker Strike. But where I'm currently at in the build and with SSF, I only really use it to do a quick screen clear. It's not the primary move in this build here. Now I'm using Grim Feast. This is because it would double my energy shield. It leaves these little orbs on the ground that you basically pick up, and that will give you more energy shield here. This will actually overflow, meaning you can double it. So if you have 1,500, it'll go to 3,000, for instance. And I have Vitality on this as well in order to give me a little bit of recovery. So this is giving me another 1,500 EHP because Grim Feast is just like super good. I'm using Herald of Thunder. This is kind of a split code and lightning damage type of build, though it's more primarily code. And this is going to give me another Herald that, once again, is going to give us bonus damage. If you look at this, 50% increased code damage while affected Herald of Ice, 50% increase from lightning damage. And this also will give us more shock And if that's why, you could take Echoing Thunder, which will give you more elemental damage if you've shocked recently. And so this is just kind of another nice additional screen clear and extra shock if you need it. I'm running this with Culling Strike because as lightnings that come down, I just kind of have as an extra Culling Strike, just so I have Culling Strike somewhere on the build. And then I have Elemental Focus, which will allow us to do more elemental damage as well. Okay, but you cannot inflict elements. That's because I'm actually getting my shock from the Charged Staff and from my standard damage. You could drop this if you want the Herald itself to actually, be doing shock, etc. Because this, if you look at this here, while killing shocked enemies with attack damage will cause subsequent attacks to release their lightning bow, which deal attack damage to all enemies, and it's converted to lightning damage. It also converts by physical. We're going to talk about the items in a minute, but basically you're building physical damage, it converts to these other elements here. When we talk about the weapon, I'll explain that more. And so this could also apply shock too if you wanted to remove that. We're talking about Combat Frenzy. Tempest Bell is where you're going to be getting a significant chunk of your boss damage. Basically, you're going to place down this bell and you're going to hit the bell and the bell echoes, and that's going to give you big burst damage against bosses. I am using Persistence so the bell lasts longer. I'm using Execute so it's more damage with hits against enemies that are in low life, and so that way when the boss is below 40% there or below low life, I think it's, 35%? Yeah, 35% of max life, and it kind of helps me get the last little hits there against the boss. And then Overabundance. You could probably... I actually don't like Overabundance, but I've been told it is quite good. The chat keeps recommending this, so I've been trying it recently. It makes the bell fairly short, but you can have two of them, and if you get two of them, your damage really goes to the moon, particularly on bosses. So I'm testing that out currently. You could go either way on this. I think this is significantly more top-end damage, but it's a little bit more annoying to use because you have to have high enough attack speed to get all the attacks in on the other bell. So I'm kind of 50-50 on Overabundance, and you could swap out Execute probably as well. But I think Persistence is very good on the Tempest Bell, and the Tempest Bell is actually just super, super strong, particularly against yellow mobs or bosses is when you're going to be using this. You drop it down, you hit the bell, it'll kill the stronger things around you because you can double dip both hitting the bigger guys was hitting the bell that you dropped on them. So you kind of get a two birds, one stone there. Now, Herald of Ice is where we're getting the majority of our screen clearing damage. This combines with this ring. And the way this ring works is if enemies are chilled, they can be shattered as if they are frozen. So if we looked at Herald of Ice, what does Herald of Ice do? While active, shattering an enemy with an attack will cause an icy explosion that deals attack damage to surrounding enemies. So we have this combination that we can shatter enemies with an attack hit, and in order to shatter, you have to attack someone that's frozen. So if you look at shattering, frozen enemies shatter when killed, destroying their corpse. So they have to be frozen. Now, if you look at the way this works here, I am the Blizzard, unfreezing enemies creates chilled ground. So you have this combination of you freeze an enemy, and it creates a chilled ground, which is making them chilled around you. And then Herald of Ice explodes as well, exploding everyone both on that chilled ground as well as the people you originally froze with Ice Strike. We'll talk about the Ice Strike in a moment, which hits everyone else with ice damage, which chills them because it's Herald of Ice and it's chilling, which then counts as being frozen because of the ring, which then if Herald of Ice kills them, then they shatter and the cycle repeats itself. So it's sort of like the armor explosion on Melee is my understanding of this. And there could be some weird interaction about the mechanic I'm not explaining just properly, but for all intents and purposes, effectively what happens is Herald of Ice and this create a chain explosion that goes from mob to mob to mob that is so potent, it can literally clear things like multiple screens away. So very often I'll be attacking a single mob, it will pop, and then just the whole screen just pops. Anything that was around that Herald of Ice. Because of this, I would magnify the effect on the Herald of Ice, making it as big of an explosion as possible to help perpetuate that chain. Code Infusion, extra damage is code. We're obviously not doing fire or lightning on this because it's 100% of physical is converted to code, so this is just extra damage. Code Penetration to penetrate the resistances. Again, I think that now that I've converted to crit, and we will have enough crit on this build, that we don't need this anymore. So I actually need to change this. This isn't 100% completed of a build at the moment. I'm still actively upgrading, trying to figure out the build, etc. So I need to move this out. Ambush here gives us 100% more critical strike chance against enemies that are full life, and because we're popping one and then going to the next, the mobs in the back we haven't hit, so this gives us a significant increase in critical strike chance, considering that I believe my base critical strike strike on this is 70%. Yes, 70.87. I'm basically, guaranteeing the crit here with 100% more against full life enemies as well. So that is how Herald of Ice works. Now, in order to start that freeze in the beginning, we're going to be using Ice Strike. Using this attack 3 times in quick succession causes a final strike that's slower and more powerful. We're going to be building up a freeze with this, and very often my first one is going to kill them literally anyway, and because it's doing cold damage, we're chilling on the first one, which again, because of the ring, will pop into the explosion, so we don't even need to have them be guaranteed frozen in the beginning in order to do that. Only if killing frozen enemies will create the chilled ground, which can help, but you don't even need this. I more take this for the extra damage. It will still work regardless. If you look at this here, Ice Bite, 35% of damage is code damage. I'm taking Martial Tempo for the attack speed, Primal Armament for more elemental damage, and then Rising Tempest because we are doing both lightning as well as ice. So this is 24% more elemental damage. And I would like to get like just a little bit of fire damage or something somewhere in order to be able to get another 12%. But this could probably be cycled out with something else, maybe close combat or something. I'm still trying to figure out 100% of the gems I like. And I only have a 4 link because, again, I'm playing SSF at the moment. Now, so that's all the primary damage things. We've already talked about Shard Staff, but I'll go over it again. Wind Dancer here is a defensive property that gives us more evasion rating as stages proc up. And then when they hit you, it kind of resets in, knocks everyone back. Now, I'm using pin because pinning will basically make them where they can't move. And this will help me get away in case they hit me and they get the explosion around it. I'm using Blind, which lowers, I believe it lowers their accuracy, if I'm correct. Yeah, 20% and evasion rating. So this is just kind of some defensive properties. If I get hit, boom, pushes them away, lowers their accuracy a little bit. Not sure where I'm putting the third one. Again, I'm still in the midst of min-maxing the build. It is a work in progress. And then Shard Staff, obviously, Combat Frenzy plus Resonance will give us the Frenzy charges. We're running Innervate, Conduction, and Lightning penetrations for the reason I already explained earlier. And just in case you didn't see it, Combat Frenzy with Profusion is how I am generating my charges. So those are all the skills currently actively. And just to correct something I may have mistaken in the previous video, I thought that you got more sockets based upon the base level of the item you have. You actually get it from your character level. So at level 90, you will get your 5th and final socket. Okay, let's talk about the gear. For damage, you're going to want the highest physical damage you can possibly get. So because of this, you're looking for, you can hold Alt, by the way, if you didn't know, in order to see the tiers of rows. You want the highest tier number, higher is better, so 9 is better than 8, for instance, of physical damage percentage, as well as flat physical. You want the physical number on your weapon here to be as high as possible. You can also add 2 sockets and add in Iron Runes, which will give you increased physical damage. The reason we want this is because our physical damage is being converted to elemental damage. So even though we're attempting to do code damage, higher physical means higher code as well for the sakes of our abilities. I'm running critical strike chance in the suffix, and I wish I had attack speed as well, or critical damage bonus as well, would be other stats I'm looking for, or plus the melee skills, though it can drain your mana more quickly. Those are all ways to get more damage. So for the sake of a weapon, as high as physical as you can get. For the other pieces of gear, we're looking for evasion and energy shield bases, or at least just evasion, but I'm using hybrid evasion and energy shield on as much as I can. I am, again, SSF, and I started fresh on this character. I didn't have stuff in my inventory already, so this is just the best gear I have. If you have better gear, props to you. That's what I would go for, as much evasion and energy shield as you can get. I'm looking for maximum life as well. I'm not running chaos inoculation, so life does actually matter for me. I'm obviously trying to keep my resistances above 75% for each, and preferably actually 90%. The reason for this is if you get cursed with elemental weakness, it lowers your resistances by 15%, and there are some maps that actually do that. And it takes it off the top end. So if I get minus 15% from Curse Elemento from the 90% code, I'll actually have 75% and still be capped. This works differently than maximum minus resistance. So if you see on a map that says maximum 15% maximum resistance for player resistances, this would actually lower this 75 number as opposed to the 90 number. Just kind of keep that in mind. The same thing goes for penetration as well. If you see that node, 15% penetration means I'm going to have 60% code resistances for the purposes of defense. For this reason, overcapping by 15% is nice just for the sake of curses. Now, moving forward, so life, we're looking for life, evasion, energy shield as much as we can on these stats. Now, on the chest plate, we want as much evasion and energy shield as we can possibly get, and preferably we have enough resistances where we can even put more evasion and energy shield, because again, the way our passive tree works here, we get more spirit for evasion and energy shield. So you want to try to make whatever combination you can to get as much spirit as you can in order to be able to use the heralds that I mentioned earlier. Now, on the boots, we 100% are going to have movement speed. Movement speed is pretty much mandatory on almost any build, so you want as high of movement speed as you can get. Again, I'm looking for HP, resistances, energy shield, evasion. Pretty simple stats you're going to hear me repeat across the board. The belt, I have the same thing. Chaos resistance, life, some mana, resistance there on lightning. The gloves, attack speed, I think is quite good if you can get it on gloves. You can actually get plus to melee skills as well on gloves. So from an offensive standpoint, you can get plus to melee, you can get attack speed, you can get critical bonuses, and you can get physical damage flat, which is actually quite good as well. So there are ways for you to increase your damage with the gloves. Other than that, we're looking for the same stats: evasion, energy shield, HP, resistances. Okay, the same thing. For the rings, mostly I'm worried about resistances. This was a very good ring that dropped for me that gave me elemental resistances, so and a little bit of life, so you can see I'm getting a lot of resistances there. For the amulet, again, resistances are the primary reason I'm wearing this amulet, and I have allocated Tainted Strike because it is cheap and also gives me critical hit chance as well for attack skills, and our Ice Strike does count as an attack skill, so for that reason I'm using that there. And then the ring is already something we've talked about, but is the primary way that your Herald of Ice can combine in order to do the screen clears. I didn't have this until later on in the build. You can run it without it, but your faux screen clear, like the one tap that pops literally everything, it is mandatory in order to have this ring. So how do we actually get this ring? But what you can do is there are chance orbs. So you can get these 10 chance shards, and you get chance shards from disenchanting unique items. And you can use a chance orb on a sapphire ring. Now, a sapphire ring is the base. You can see here it's a sapphire ring. And what a chance orb does is it turns an item into a unique item, or it has a chance to. Otherwise, it looks like I don't even have a sapphire ring. Oh, here we go. So I could use a chance orb on one of these, but it would have to be a normal sapphire ring. Can't be magic, can't be yellow. It has to be a base white sapphire ring. You have a chance for it to turn into a unique version of that base item. So because it's a sapphire ring, it might become this ring if you are lucky. Now, I've done, I think, 4 chance orbs, and I got one of these. I got one of these as a faux drop, about level 85 or so, and then I chance orbed into another one, so that way I could vow one and attempt to make it even better. So that is how you can get your hands on this, by chance orbing it if you're SSF. Otherwise, you could buy one on the market. I am unaware of their price as it stands. I'm also using the Hands of Wisdom in action. This is, again, SSF, so I just got these as a drop from the Pinnacle Breach boss at the moment, which gives us lots of attack speed and lightning damage, and I'm kind of like hybrid a little bit of lightning damage as well. So this is actually quite a good item as well, but from my understanding, this can be quite an expensive item in trade. I don't know, I didn't buy them, I got them as a drop. So this is currently my faux build here, and I would recommend go look at others, see what they're running, find an old hybrid version, maybe of everyone's different variations, and in my opinion, it has been a significant increase in enjoyability of playing the game since I've started playing this. Monk is easily my favorite, and I'm having a fantastic time playing this. If you want to see what it looks like live, or you have any questions I failed to answer in this video, I will be live now. You can find the link down below, as well as a link to the planner that I will show you real quick. Here it is. It's my first time using the Max Row Planner, but I'll have a link down below so you can look at it. As you noted, kills, everything is a strength, and not a warrior is a negative. But there you go. You can see the gear. I copy-pasted my own gear in here. We have the Atlas tree even, in case you wanted to see what I'm using for Atlas tree. This is mostly for map sustain. And then we have all the skills, abilities, etc. in there as well. If you're considering getting a new PC for Path of Exile 2, consider today's sponsor, Starforge Systems. Now, this is Path of Exile, and I'm sure there are 55 billion better ways you could make this build, but this is the build that I'm currently using. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and it's working for me, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Links down below for everything you might be looking for, and have a wonderful day. I'll see you on the live stream.